So Be'ezras Hashem, we're jumping back into Likutei Moharan, a new week. B'siyata d'shmaya, carrying on with our Amud Yomi learning, together with Yidden all around the world, and us here in London, with our hearts in Yerushalayim. And we jump back into Torah Dalet. So just to catch us up a little bit over the past couple of days, we haven't learned, together at least, hopefully Chavar are doing Chazara over Shabbos and reviewing things that we learned during the week. It's a very big special tikkun actually, to just read through everything that we've done. You just sit, takes a little bit of time, an hour and a half, but it's a tainug nifla. You don't have to translate every word, and then you get to see things in a way of hekif, which is incredible, which is really what we're trying to do. Good morning, with all of our learning here together. So we've been learning, says Rebbe Nachman, about tikkun malchus. How does a person elevate malchus from where it currently is, Binah akom? What does that experience look like of living with the realization, which we began discussing in Torah Aleph, about Malchus to Gedusha, to be able to really perceive, if you can shut the door also, if you can somehow squeeze it, thank you. What does it mean for a person to see the world as the Levana that's mamish illuminated, a Levana that's full of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light, so that the world doesn't hide Hashem, but the world reveals Hashem? What does that experience look like emotionally for a person to be able to encounter every single experience and to be able to say, Gamzu l'taiva. When a person knows, says Rebbe Nachman, shakol ma'erois avheim l'tavasai, everything the person goes through is for his good. This aspect is mamash me'ein olam haba, and that's the bechin of Shabbos, which is me'ein olam haba. And what Shabbos is a little taste of what that world is ultimately going to look like when you come to that seventh day and you look back over the week and you're able to say, Ishbar le'eda, we've been learning through Sinai, Yuchsil la'yavan azois. There are unfathomable things that happen, but I believe that it's all from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? I believe that lahagid baboiker chazdecha ve'emunascha, that even when it's dark, that's the aspect of Olam Haba, about which it says, B'yaymahu yiyeh Hashem echad u'shmai echad, and the Gemara asks him, now HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not one, and the answer is of course He's one, but from our perspective there are still good things and bad things that happen. The good things are mamish good and require us to make a bracha baruch hatoiv ha'meitiv. The bad things are bad, and you say baruch ta'ina emes. But the asid love it, we're going to come to a reality where everything is so absolutely clear that everything was for our best, that every single tiny detail is managed and crafted. They have this word bespoke. If they want to make anything sound super fancy, they say it's bespoke. Everything bespoke. Life is bespoke. It's mamish. It's created exactly for us. The whole thing is bespoke. Bespoke. HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke the world into existence for each and every one of us. Mamish. It's for us. It's ours. Rachma malala. Says the Rebbe. So what happens? That Malchus to Kedusha falls among the Goyim. How does a person rectify it? So the Rebbe says, well, first of all, why is it that we're finding it so difficult to live life with Emunah? Says the Rebbe, because there are Averis in the world. And what are Averis? Averis are tzirufei oisiyos, right? That were spoken through the Torah, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, not to steal, not to be an adulterer, not to this, not to that, and the other thing. Now, when a person is over on one of these things, says Rebbe Nachman, the tzirufim of those letters switch around and they become etched onto our bones. And they're in us, right? And again, what this means on what level, millions of meanings, but on a very simple level, our sins put up a wall between us and Hashem and prevent the person from being able to live a spiritual life. Because all the while that we're focused on ourselves, it's going to be much more difficult to live life with a mission orientation, to think about Hashem the whole day, Shivisi Hashem and Agdisabit, because I have my own business to take care of, and I have my own motivations, and I have my own objectives, and I have my own life. But if we don't have our own lives, and we exist as drops of that ocean, that just pop up for a little bit, always focusing on the source from which we came for the purpose of channeling the entirety of the infinite into our little drop, like we spoke about in the Kasser Shem Tov Shir yesterday morning, where every part contains the whole, and every Chelik Alikami Mal contains the whole Havoya, contains the whole Yud Kei Vav Kei and everything that's hinging on it. If I'm living for a mission, so from that perspective, it becomes clear and easy to live connected to Hashem in such a way. But the Averis become etched into the bones, and we need to get rid of it. How do we get rid of it? Says the Rebbe, the way to get rid of it, to be able to live in the consciousness of Vayaymahu Yeh Hashem Echad Ushmoi, which is Elikim, is all Echad. So there's Achdus between Chasadim and Gvuras, which is the quasi-sphere of Das, right, which contains Chasadim and Gvuras, because it's channeling down the energies of Chochmah and Binah and refracting them in such a way where it can come down and become Chesed and Gvura. So Das contains Chasadim and Gvuras, meaning Das is the unification of the good things that happen to us and the bad things that happen to us, which we recognize is all the revelation of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's what it calls das. That's what it means das. How does a person get das? Says the Rebbe, through vidoy dvarim lifnei talmid chacham. And this was on the discussion chat, caused for some concern and confusion, and it is apparently a radical concept, but it's very difficult to have sort of an opinion or clarity on a concept before you see the whole thing fleshed out. So in the middle of the Torah, so a lot of the questions come just because we haven't gotten all the information yet. And so we began with this idea, and we spoke about how it emerges through Yehuda, right, whose bones were megugalim, they were turning over and over and over in the coffin until Moshe Rabbeinu mentioned the vidoy of Yehuda that inspired the vidoy of Reuven, and he said, "Let HaKadosh Baruch Hu remember, right, the vidoy," and through that the bones rested. Says Rebbe Nachman, why? Because on the bones was reflected the Averis. And what's the inyan of Averis or Malchus, the Sitra Achra, right? What happens? Says Rebbe Nachman, that's a fire. And the Rebbe connected that to Malchus because of Nevat, right? That thought he was going to be the Melech because he saw Eish Yatzame Amasai. Amasai is the Bechina of Bris, is Yisoid, right? And Eish that comes out from Yisoid is the Bechina of Malchus. And so he thought that he was going to be king because Eish is Malchus, and the Eish emblazons Tumah into our bodies, mamish the Eish of the Yetzer Hara, the type of the Yetzer Hara. How do you fix that? Says Rebbe Nachman, through vidoy dvarim, which is the bechina of the Torah, halokai dvari ke'esh, right? So orienting the letters of the Torah when a person unburdens themselves. And again, you're not being misavada to the Talmud Chacham. Let's make that clear, right? That tzaddik is not the one that's being mechaper. That tzaddik is the one that's achieving this tikkun for your nefesh through the kapara of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? That ki imcha slicha, the mantiv of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the slicha. But there's an element of kapara that's able to take place. Maybe you can call it on a quasi-emotional, spiritual level. We said like even therapy is a bechina of this because you unburden yourself, right? And it comes out of your bones where you're carrying all the shame and guilt, and that's certainly a part of it. But ultimately, in the presence of a tzaddik, zemashu acher, where the Malchus is able to become reoriented, because the Talmidei Chachamim are also called Malchus and Eish, because they themselves are the embodiment of the Torah. And that's where Rebbe Nachman says, anything that became impure through fire, the only way to purify it is by putting it back, as stark, by putting it back through fire. And that's the way ultimately that we're going to be able to get out of what we're stuck in. And that's a little bit of Hakdama just to focus us. And here we carry on with Oy Zayin. V'zeh perish, says Rebbe Nachman, Tzchus Yagan Aleinu Chamas Melech Malachim Aves. This is the meaning of the pasuk in Mishlei. The king's wrath is the Malachim Aves, messengers. Yes. The king's wrath is Malachim Aves, is messengers of death. Says Rebbe Nachman, what's the inyan of Chamas Melech Malachim Aves? What's this concept of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's anger? Like, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu care about Averis and what's going on in this world? What does he want? And what does it mean that things are happening in a way that makes HaKadosh Baruch Hu frustrated? Says Rabbi Nachman, Chamas Melech. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's frustration is over his Melech, his Malchus. Ki Chamasei Shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's anger and frustration with us, and ultimately sadness, is B'shvil HaMalchus Shehishbal Yidei Avonosav. It is because Hashem wants us to recognize His love and His care, and Hashem wants us to choose life, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is life. Ki Eitz Chaim Ilam HaChazikim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to give us everything, and He's sad. It's not like angry, like He's punishing us. He's upset, like a father who just wants the best for his kid, and the kid again and again and again is choosing self-destructive behaviors. It's making him miserable and destroying his life. It's not, you understand, it's very different than like anger. You're not angry, you're full of compassion and full of sadness because like, why? Like it could be so much better. Like Rav Kook says, why are we being cruel to ourselves? Right? We're causing it to ourselves. So that's the beginning of the pasuk, that there's a problem because Hamas, because Melech, because there's a hashpala to Malchus. And the end of the pasuk says, you know what the end of the pasuk is? V'ish chacham yichaprena. So anybody who was so worried about Rebbe Nachman bringing this like radical new thing that it's tzaddik, has something to do with kapara, it's a pasuk in Mishlei. The ish chacham yichaprena. Right? The ish chacham, which Rebbe Nachman is going to tell us is a very particular kind of tzaddik, yichaprena, will be the one who is mechaper for that. So you have a literal source that there is the concept of a tzaddik, and now again, it's not the tzaddik's job to forgive, it's a ki imcha slicha, but the tzaddik can help a person achieve kapara. How? Through vidoy dvarim, as Rebbe Nachman is going to currently demonstrate.
It's connected to Torah Aleph.
Yeah?
Because in Torah Aleph he talks about Chochmah. Then he talks about the tav being etching in. So Hamas here, what he's saying, it's not an anger, it's a compassion, because it's the love, it's the chom, which makes the inroads into where it's going. So he's tying it back to Torah again.
Gorgeous. It's all one. It's all connected. Says the Rebbe, this is the aspect of the Talmud Chacham, the Ish Chacham Yichaprena Bechinas Moshe, but it has to be the aspect of Moshe Rabbeinu, Hu Yichaper Loi. This tzaddik will achieve kapara on behalf of this person by Hashem, K'Moshe Kasav, another pasuk in Micha, Va'oiver al Pesha L'She'eris. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will overlook Psha'im L'She'eris to the remnants, and the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah tells us, L'Misha Mesim Atzmai Kishirayim, to a person who makes himself like a remnant, like an afterthought, meaning a humble person. Nimtza, says Rebbe Nachman, these two sources enable us to understand the Ish Chacham Yichaperena, that's number one, and two, V'oivar al Pesha L'She'eris, that a Kadosh Baruch Hu overlooks sins, L'She'eris, L'Misha Mesim Atzmai Kish'eris, to a humble person. Nimtza, says the Rebbe, it emerges, Kishabal Lefnei Talmud Chacham, Moitzi Kol Tzirufav, Lefnei Talmud Chacham, you stand there and you unburden yourself. Somebody wanted to know also, it's a Bechin of Esbodida. Sure, it's not like Vidu, you're not standing in front of the Talmud Chacham and doing a Shamnu Beganu. It's mamish pouring out your heart. That's what it is. That's what we call vidoy. It's your own dibor, reflecting on everything that you've done, that you've been carrying inside of you for years and years and years, and you're finally able to just let it loose in a compassionate space of someone who gets you, who loves you. I felt this most powerfully, even more than Rebbe Nachman in a certain sense in the beginning, by the Berditchever Rav. Because if there's one thing that everyone knows about the Berditchever is he's standing by you. You know, he's the defender of Klal Yisrael. He's the defense attorney. He's mamish there to listen with compassion. And if you're able to be in the presence of someone who you know adores you, and someone who can never see anything else but the good in you, it's extraordinarily powerful, because then you're able to express everything in the context of compassion and care and love and non-judgmentalism. And then it becomes something else. Then the tzirufim are able to rearrange, and it becomes, instead of look how terrible I am and look what I did, it's like, wow, look at what I've been through. Like, I've really been struggling. I'm a good person, and I'm stuck in the clutches of the Yetzer Hara. That's not me. It's an external force that was once the Nachash in the Gan Eden, and the Yetzer Das Tevurah mixed the good with the bad and the bad with the good, and I have a Nachash inside of me, and I'm dealing with things that are b'chlal not me, and I have to carry around the baggage of Adam and Chava, v'chule v'chule. This kind of reframe in thinking, which we're going to encounter again be'ezras Hashem later on in Likutei Moharan in Torah Kuf Yud Beis be'ezras Hashem. We're going to get to this. Rebbe Nachman says this very, very explicitly. So then, all of a sudden, that's therapeutic. That's healing. And it helps us to reframe. But how do we know what the tzaddik is thinking or not thinking of us? Well, the tzaddik let us know what he's thinking because he wrote a whole sefer. And the Rebbe Nachman says, I put myself in the sefer. And that's why once a person gets to know the Rebbe, you go to Uman, it's something else, not just like this thing, Uman Rosh Hashanah. You have a relationship with this person. Forget about all the balagan. You've built a kesher. You're grateful. You feel like this person is giving you life. This person is your channel, your connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You walk into the Dalet Amos of that place and you fall apart. You fall to pieces. You fall to pieces. And I'll just say also, I guess I mentioned last time that some people do vidur dvarim before the kaver, right, what the tzaddik actually is. And I'm remembering that there's another, maybe even more radical Breslov Hanhaga, just so people should know, because Rebbe Nachman said, I put myself in my sefer, they'll do vidur dvarim before Likutei Moharan. Because in a certain sense, the Rebbe's whole being is in this sefer. The Rebbe's whole das is in the sefer. Let's carry on. Let's try to keep, if we can, the questions to the end, just because there's so much content to cover, and we go through it. Okay, fine. Nimtza kishabal lefnei Talmud Chacham amoitzi kol tzirufav lefnei Talmud Chacham v'al Talmud Chacham u'bechinas Moshe shemesim atzmi kishirayim, and it keeps on saying Moshe, aside from the fact that the Sofei Tevos, the closing letters of the Ish Chacham Yichaprena spells Moshe, right? So Moshe is literally coded into those words, the Ish Chacham Yichaprena, right? Shin and a mem and a hey, that's Moshe. But Moshe Rabbeinu was literally Mesim Atzmi Kishirayim. Kamoshe Kasava Ish Moshe Anav Mi'oid. Right? And Moshe was the humblest person. Why do people get so nervous when you hear about this concept? You know, the priest, and you're going into the booth, you know, and you're confessing to the priest, and the priest is forgiving. Because hold on a second, there's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world. There's no priest. There's no tzaddik. What are you talking about? Right? Meaning, I'm using the Christian. So what's this business of doing vidui dvarim in front of a Talmud Chacham? And then you read a little bit further. and you say the condition for this kapara that's happening by Hashem through this experience with the tzaddik on a psycho-spiritual, emotional level, in order for that to work, you have to be speaking about a tzaddik who is literally batal, like Abed Ein Sof. We're going to see a nice test by Hashem. Batal, completely batal. There is no tzaddik. Because from that standpoint, we're talking about malchus. And from the standpoint of malchus, you don't exist as an individual, and the tzaddik doesn't exist as an individual. It's different parts of you talking to parts of you. Which is very, very deep. It's all Knesset Yisrael. Knesset Yisrael has tzaddikim, but like we are part and parcel. We're cells in one body, and it's the sinful part speaking to that purely holy part that you have inside of yourself. And the kapara is minei ubei. And the only reason that works is because in that moment you're batal, because you're coming with all due humility to be able to say, like, I've got some stuff I need to unburden myself from, in front of a tzaddik who's the bechina of mesim atzmi k'shirayim. So he's not an individual as like some kind of, he's going to be the one to forgive you. He's not forgiving you. He's not. The forgiveness is coming from Hashem. How does it happen? Through the interpersonal interplay within klalius nishmas Yisrael, where the tzaddik is mamish a part of you, and you are a part of him, and both of you are a part of the Shechina, and the Shechina is the sphere of Malchus, and the sphere of Malchus is part and parcel of the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's spheres, which are manifest throughout Tzilas, which is and back and back and back and back until it's absolutely one with the Ein Sof. This is a little bit of the depth of what's happening, so you have to read the nuance of the words and not jump quickly to our Gashmias perceptions of like, what? This is Christianity. It's like, wait a second, it's very, very deep. Very, very deep. We have to go deep and slow and patient. This is why the tzaddik is called an ish chacham. In that earlier pasuk that says that a Kadosh Baruch Hu is over al pesha. No, I'm sorry. In the pasuk that says "Ish chacham yichaprena," says Rebbe Nachman, that pasuk itself alludes to the humility that's later reflected in the second verse that Rebbe Nachman brought, which is "Va'over al pesha l'she'eris l'mishem esim atzmi k'shirayim." The second source alludes to humility because she'eris is l'mishem esim atzmi k'shirayim, which is humility, and says the Rebbe that's also reflected in "Ish chacham yichaprena." I could have used it. It could have said "Ish tzaddik yichaprena." It could have said "Ish tahar yichaprena." Why "Ish chacham"? Says the Rebbe, because Chochmah also alludes to humility. Kamashakasav v'hachachma me ayin timatzeh. True Chochmah emerges from ayin, from nothingness. So that pasuk itself of ish chacham is also over al pesha l'she'eris. It's the same idea. It has to do with humility, and this is the bechina of Moshe Rabbeinu. Ubezeh yesh koyach l'talmid chacham l'chaper. Over here, the Talmud Chacham has the capacity to bring about kapara for a person. Nemar v'ish chacham yichaperena. Now, based on all of this, the Heilige Rebbe Nachman says, now we can understand why Moshe Rabbeinu was trying to bring about a kapara for Klal Yisrael on account of Chet Egel, because we wouldn't have gotten that kapara without Moshe Rabbeinu. But wait a second, what Moshe Rabbeinu? There's just Hashem. Good luck. The tzaddik is the one who brings about kapara for the whole Klal Yisrael. These are psukim in the Torah. So b'shvil zeh, kishispalo Moshe al Chet Egel, Amar, he said, Im tisa chatasam, if you will carry their sin, good, right? V'im ayin mecheni na misifrecha, but if not, mecheni na misifrecha asher kasafta. Famously, these words are ani nachman meuman, which is absolutely fascinating because the words ayin mecheni, right? If you just look at the last nun, right? The last letter of ayin is a nun, and then memches nun is nachman. Broader, it's ani nachman, and the Rosh Tevis are meuman, which is absolutely incredible. So Rebbe Nachman's mom is rooted in this, like in a wild, wild way. But be that as it may, says Rebbe Nachman, ma kesher. What's the connection between forgive them, and if not, erase me from your book? It's like, what's the connection? Says the Rebbe, because this is absolutely just impossible. When somebody's praising somebody else, naturally the person's going to come to feel, wow, they feel something chashuv, I did something good. A person feels a little bit of gaiva. Can you imagine the greatest king in the world finds you interesting and useful and talented? It's unbelievable. He's for sure going to come to gaiva. In order for a person mamish to be able to be praised in a way that's not going to damage the avodas Hashem and magnify their sense of ego and separation from the divine, they have to be batal. Their whole entire life needs to be null and void vis-a-vis this mission of recognizing I'm just a shliach for the Ein Sof. I'm just a vessel for the light of the divine. When a person is so humble, then they're able to praise themselves, or they're able to hear other people praise them, and it doesn't impact them. This is one of the things that turns people off from Breslov in the beginning. When you turn into Chaim Moran and you see the things Rebbe Nachman said about himself, no tzaddik in history, right, spoke about the Rebbe the way that he spoke about himself. Anish Pele v'neshmasi Pele Gadol. I'm a wonder. My soul is a wonder. Chidush kamayni lo haya me'olam. There was never such a novelty like me. Ani nahar hamitaher mikalak samim. Right, I'm a river that cleanses. I'm gonna sing a song which will be the olam haba of all the tzaddikim. If anybody would hear one Torah from Likutei Moharan together with its song and its dance, the whole world would be nullified. Mashiach will teach my sefer, etc., etc., etc. Unbelievable. And it looks like tremendous gaiva. But if you learn Torah Dalet, it turns out that it's the exact opposite. In order for a person to be able to speak about their capacity in a holy way, Adarabba, it means that they're so batal that, like Moshe Rabbeinu himself wrote, Ish Moshe anav mi'od mikol adam, which is the greatest paradox in the world. He's praising himself for his anivas. Just like, how does that work? Rabbi Yossi, at the end of the Gemara in Saita, right? Don't say that Anava disappeared, the Ikana, because I'm still around. So Anava is still here, because look at me. It's a crazy thing, but it's this idea. It's because these people were so humble that Memela says, Rebbe Nachman, then you can indeed hear yourself being praised, and you won't come to any godless. It's the whole Torah. Imagine 600,000 Jews, 3 million men, women, and children, and the whole thing is about Moshe. The whole Torah is speaking to Moshe. Everything that we learn is the praise of Moshe Rabbeinu, who brought the Torah down for us. And he himself, which is the neshama of these great tzaddikim, Rebbe Nachman is rooted in this neshama. So it's an aspect of this. He himself was telling them his praise. And and he didn't have any godless. So says the Rebbe, if Moshe Rabbeinu is so humble that he's able to hear HaKadosh Baruch Hu praising him in the Torah, and he's still not able to feel any godless, then he is the spitz, the absolute pinnacle of a tzaddik who is able to be mechaper for other people. Because v'ish chacham mechaperena and v'chachma me'ayin timatzeh and over al pesha l'she'eris l'misha mesim atzme k'SHIURIM. He is that tzaddik. Memela, we'll say it outside and then we'll read it inside. Says Rebbe Nachman, Moshe Rabbeinu comes to Hashem and says, if you'll forgive Am Yisrael on my account, Yafeh Ma'od, then I'm so humble that it's okay to keep me in the Torah with all of my praises, because it's not going to damage my avodas Hashem, because apparently I'm so batal that it's okay to hear myself praised. But v'im ayin. But if not, and if for whatever reason I haven't reached the requisite level of bittul that I could be mechaper for other people, so take me out of your sefer because it's going to damage me. So the Rebbe says that's the kesher between these two parts of the pasuk. Let's read it inside. Moshe, and this is what Moshe Rabbeinu says. I'm sorry, go back a line. Because of Moshe Rabbeinu's great anivos, so therefore Moshe Rabbeinu ostensibly is going to be able to be mechaper for the ego. The ish chacham yichaprena. So Moshe, this is what Moshe was telling Hashem. V'im ayin hainu emloi tisachatasan. Right? If on my account you're not going to forgive Klal Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're showing me that apparently I haven't reached that level of bittul, that I haven't been able to be mechaper for them. Therefore, I'm coming with a bakasha. Do me a favor, take me out of the Torah, so that I shouldn't stumble with godless. This is the meaning of the pasuk. The whole time I'm seeing that I'm being praised Because unless a person is absolutely nullified, who's able to withstand that on a spiritual level without that reinforcing their sense of ego, their sense of individuality, and their sense of being split off from the Ein Sof? If not the greatest anav, and if it's true that I'm mamish on that level, so now I'm telling you, be mechaper for them. So with this concept of the tzaddik, being able to bring about kapara through their humility, over here, this very obscure and strange enigmatic pasuk comes to great light. And this is pshat in the pasuk of Devarim, Vayehi b'Yeshurun melech, when there was a king in Yeshurun, which Rashi says is a reference to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was the melech of Am Yisrael. Hanushem malchus ala l'sharsha, Vayehi b'Yeshurun melech, when malchus is lifted up, K'moshe kasa va'anavim yirshu aretz. This aspect of Malchus being elevated is the result of the Anavim. Who are the Anavim? The Tzaddikim. How are the Tzaddikim elevating Malchus to Kedusha? The Anavim Yirshu Aretz. What's Aretz? Aretz is always Malchus. Shemayim is Tiferes. Kutchabrichu. Eretz is always Malchus. The Anavim Yirshu Aretz. The Anavim are helping to lift up Aretz, Malchus, Vayehi b'Yeshurun Melech, through Moshe Rabbeinu. How? Because when a person who has the tzirufim of Malchus to Sitra Achra literally emblazoned in all their bones comes in front of such a person and unburdens their heart, that person is for that individual a channel straight to the love and the healing and the compassion of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And through that, everything is wiped away. The eretz udina de malchusa, eretz is mamash malchus, kameshikasa, the eretz miskaima malai. That if a person is not doing what they're supposed to do, eretz, the whole earth is against him. Eretz miskaima malai, eretz is malchus, dina de malchusa dina. It could be din for a person, and that's the bechina of malchus that's in exile. That's the bechina, going back to Torah Aleph, of the levana that isn't reflecting the light of the sun. That's the energy of Esav, right? That's the lifestyle of ego gratification and darkness, chayshach kaflu mechupal loyach ksil betfuna kim bezgalus liboy, and so on and so forth. But the ish chacham mechaperena vayehi b'Yeshurun melech va'anavim yirshu aretz. The anavim, the tzaddikim, or bechina of Moshe Rabbeinu, they are able to yirshu aretz, to free the malchus. Now the Rebbe begins the next leg of the journey with an incredible, mind-blowing reading. This is even before the Rabbah Bar Bachana, which we're going to get to Be'ez Hashem later in the week. But in the middle of this Torah, Rebbe Nachman says, well, check it out. This is all a Gemara in Saita. New Giluyim, Chevra. New Giluyim. This is not Pshatim and Psukim. These are new revelations that you would never have been able to understand that pasuk, the way Rebbe Nachman read it, without a totally separate cluster of Giluyim. It's brand new Torah that's emerging from heaven. It's something else. So this is the Gemara in Saita. I'm going to read it just in full because the Rebbe only has it over here with a v'chulu at the end and cuts it off midway. So I'm just going to read it, the full thing. Says the Rebbe, there was a person who's walking. Says the Gemara in Saita. There's a person who's walking in a dark night. It's dark and he's alone. And he's worried about the thorns and thistles and from pits that he might stumble into. And he's also worried about wild animals and from highway robbers. And he doesn't know which way he's going. Right, mamish, a person is in a terrifying situation. Imagine, right, there's all these things that he's worried about, and to top it all off, he's lost. Right, forget about the fact that he knows where he's going. He's mamish lost. Says the Gemara, Nizdam lo yavuka shal ar. If he encounters a torch, that will take care of his fear of the thorns, right? That he's going to walk into some kind of thorn bush and scrape himself, and the pit, because he has a torch he can see. He's still worried because the torch is not really going to protect him from wild animals or from highway robbers. On the contrary, it might attract attention, right, and let people know where he is. And he doesn't know where he's going. Once morning comes, he's saved from the animals and from the highway robbers, because it's morning, it's dawn, and there are people that are mistoviv, there are people walking around, and he's less likely to get attacked either by animals or by humans. But it's still not good enough, because he doesn't know where to go. Once he reaches a fork in the road, maybe there's a shelet, there's a sign that's sort of pointing him in which direction each road leads, then he's nitzel mikulam, then he's saved from everything. My precious drachim. What is this precious drachim? What does this mean? Amar of Chizda zel Talmud Chacham v'yam Amisa. Precious drachim is a Talmud Chacham and the day of death. And here Rebbe Nachman is going to reveal the deepest secrets underlying this Gemara, based on everything that we've learned so far in Torah Dalet. Says the Rebbe Kizay Adua, because this is known. All of our negative traits and all of the things that we struggle with draw on the four Yesodos, Me'arba Maras, which are correlated to the four biles. There's Mara Aduma, Mara Yeruka, Mara Shchira, Mara Levana. These are different biles that either are metaphysical or physical. This is what all of science was based on, the Rambam science. And all medieval science was really based on the four maras. Now, in a certain sense, science has progressed away from it, but there are still those who believe that this is a real thing, right? And certainly, again, if it's not physically true, but it's spiritually true, it's energetically true, that there are these four different liquids within the human body that emerge from the four Yesodos, which are Eish, Ruach, Mayim, Afar, fire, air, water, and earth, that are connected to these four maros, that from them are emerging domem, tzomeach, chai, medaber, inanimate, plant life, animals, and humans, because all fours are interconnected, and ultimately they all wrap up into Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the Ikr, the Sharsha, the Kula Almin, right, which is the root of all that exists. And so all categories of four, which we just mentioned a few, right? We mentioned the Arba Marais, we mentioned the Arba Yesodos, and the Arba levels, right? The four Rivadim of creation. It's all wrapped up into Yud Kei Vav Kei. Says the Rebbe, well, if those are the expression of Olam Hazeh, literally, the encompassing fourfold categorical segment that includes the whole physical world, inanimate, plant life, animals, humans. You can't find anything in the physical world that doesn't fit into one of those four categories. And everything of those four categories is made up of an intermingling between the four Yesodos, right? Eish, Ruach, Mayim, Afar. And ultimately in our own human bodies, right, we have the Arba Marais. Says Rebbe Nachman, where do you think Midas Rois are coming from? They're all coming from there. From Gashmias. Right? From our experience of physicality. And it's very specific which Midos Ra'os come from which. And the Baal Tanya speaks about this, Parak Aleph, Parak Beis in Tanya. Atzus v'taldei sehem nimshachim midoimim. Depression, laziness, heaviness, despair, sadness comes from domem, right? The inanimate that's like heavy. Domem is the earth, its gravity pulls you down. Taibas rois v'taldei sehem nimshachim mitzameach. When a person has a lust, a yearning for something, comes from someach, from plant life, growth, sprouting. Devarim b'telim v'taldei sehem, stam, wasting time, saying words that don't matter, wasting. It's like nimshachim echai, right? That comes from the animals, which correlates to ruach, right? Which is ruach. It's just hot air. It's nothing. Gaiva v'taldei sehem nimshachim medaber, and gaiva comes from medaber, the human being, right? Which is on the one hand the most impressive of all creatures. On the other hand, it only goes to 30 minutes. Okay. Let's just set that up again. Okay, you might take care of it. Right. So, and that's nimshachim medaber. That medaber is the bechina of eish. Eish, and that's gaiva being elevated. Says the Rebbe, Misharot Leleb Derech HaKodesh, a person who wants to walk in the holy way. A person's got to mamish work on all these midas and then bring it to the tzaddik, bring it to the Talmud Chacham, Hanuvidu Dvarim. And over here again, he gives a very practical, because he already spoke in the metaphysics, which is true Kabbalistically, the aliyah of Malchus and the letters come off of the bones and they rearrange and the Averis become mitzvahs and the aliyah of Malchus, all that is real, but much more practically is on a very basic level. Like we said, you cannot, the doctor can't give you a prescription unless he knows what your symptoms are. It's a very simple, almost very basic, practical thing. You come to the tzaddik, you tell him what's hurting, and the tzaddik will show you a derech. All right, so here Rebbe Nachman is very explicit about what the true nature of this kapara is a very practical thing that tzaddik is able to diagnose, and the tzaddik is able to reveal for that person a way in accordance with that person's sharash neshama, like Rebbe Nachman did for all of his chassidim. He gave them their own learning programs. This one he said to learn 18 prakma mishnayos a day. This one the whole sefer Tehillim every day or week. Everybody got their own prescription, their own. their own unique prescription based on their own sharish neshama. Says Rebbe Nachman, there are actually three aspects of getting close to tzaddikim. That if a person engages in all of these three, everything can be rectified. And again, because I personally, my Rebbe is Rebbe Nachman, like he lives in the sefer. I'm learning from him right now. I'm sitting in front of him right now. So it's not just a living tzaddik, although it's important to have a living mashpia, somebody that you can actually consult in. But tzaddikim, people who understand the inyan of tzaddikim and their teachings understand that it's not a matter of like being alive in this world, right? The Zohar Kadosh says, on the contrary, in Chabad they speak about this obviously all the time, that actually once a tzaddik leaves the world, he's found in the world, what the Zohar says, yater mibechayahi, even more than he was in the world when he was alive. Because when he's in the world when he's alive, he's limited to one particular a point. When he's free from the guf, neshama is all over the place, all the time.
Yatzer also means free.
Huh?
Yatzer also means free. He's like...
Yes, he's freed.
He's
beautiful.
free from his bounds.
Matir, right? He's freed. Freed.
Tzaddikim lo meisim.
Mamish. Yaakov Avinu lo meis, tzaddikim lo meis, yelcha michal l'chal. So just keep that in mind. That person is like frantically trying to find a tzaddik. That bechina is true, but we're sitting in front of one. We're learning from his sefer. Says the Rebbe, Habachina Harishayna, that's also true, Aiden, yes. Habachina Harishayna, says the Rebbe, what the first level is? Kisharayas HaTzadik. Just going to see the tzaddik, just to look upon the tzaddik. Your eyes should see your teacher. Just to be in the presence of a tzaddik, to be exposed to the tzaddik's teaching, because the tzaddik isn't just a person, it's the das of the tzaddik, it's the consciousness of the tzaddik, it's the teachings of the tzaddik, coming into the context, into the presence of a tzaddik, says the Rebbe, this already gets rid of the midas rois, which come from the two yisodos of domim someach. Just coming into the presence of the tzaddik gets rid of domim someach. What is domim and someach? Depression, sadness, and taiva. Sadness and taiva. You come in front of a tzaddik, or whatever your taivas were, the Baal Shem Tov turns around the corner, you bump into Rebbe Nachman, you bump into Yeshayahu Hanavi, you bump it's like, forget it. Your whole, all your stuff is gone. Because you're coming into the presence of what Rav Kook refers to as Mara de Ratzon, the masters of will who are able to elicit from within a Jew your true Ratzon that cuts beyond all of your this worldly stuff, that's weighing you down or that's pulling you up. You just come in front of a tzaddik, everything is just completely wiped away. You know why? Listen to how beautiful this is. Because the tzaddik is called an aim. He's called a mother. Al Shem Shu Meinically Yisrael Ba'or Tairasai. Because again, the tzaddik is about Torah. It's not about a fur coat, and it's not about a fancy streimel, and it's not about gabayim and what do they call the Escalades and SUVs. It's not that. It's really not that. It's Ar Tairasai. What is the tzaddik bringing to the world? It's the Ar of the tzaddik. And the tzaddik is Meinik, is nursing Klal Yisrael with his Torah, is nursing them to health. And Torah is called chalav, and that's a reference to the Torah. That's chalav. And we see this as the Rebbe when a child is very sad and a child is throwing a big fit. When he sees his mother, all of a sudden the mother enters the room and the child, he yearns for the mother. And it makes him happy, and the mother is able to calm him down in a way that no other person could calm him down, because Gewalt, this is his mother, this is the shirish of his chiyas, this is his mother, and his mother is able to nurse him back to health. And we also see a different aspect of this. When a child is busy playing just silly games, he has a taiva, he's enjoying the game, he's enjoying the pizza. When the child sees his mother come into the room, he chucks it all over his shoulder. Especially, a person's away. I was just away for a week. You walk in, the kids are eating pizza, whatever it is, they're mamish. You walk into the room, and my little baby was the cutest thing. Amichai is like a year. He was sitting on my wife's lap. He walked in, and he just fell backward. He just fell over. He was so overwhelmed with joy. He just couldn't handle it. He's like, So they see their shirish, they see their parent, they see their mother, their father. All the taivas, the shtus, you throw it away. Nimtza shemevatlan amidas rois al shnei hisoides doimim sameach aidei staklis pnei tzaddik. Atzvos, which comes from doimim, and taiva, which comes from sameach, is this battle through the iyas pnei tzaddik. Says the Rebbe, we'll go back to what we spoke about, this person wandering in a forest, and he's worried from kaitzim and pchasim. What are kaitzim? Kaitzim are thorns, which is a bechina of sameach. Right? He's worried about the midas rice that he has that are drawn from kaitzim. What's pchasim? Is a pit, which is the bechina of afar, of daimim. He's stuck in kaitzim and pchasim, daimim and sameach and daimim. SHIURIM and kaitzim shebechinas sameach upchasim shebechinas daimim. Ukashin daman le'avuka shal ar. When a torch comes, what's the torch? The Talmud Chacham. A person encounters the teachings of the tzaddik. A person encounters healing Torah. Person encounters a derech to really come close to Hashem in a compassionate, healthy way. Shu avik ba'ara Torah, that's mamish, the torch of Torah. The al yadai nitzam libidas roish shal shnei yisaydas daimim tzameach, v'az nitzam and akaitzim and abchasim, you're saved. That's bechina number one. Bechina shniya, the second level of coming close to a tzaddik is tzedakah. Shenois on the Talmud Chacham is the tzedakah that a person gives to a Talmud Chacham. Anybody who's listening to this who donated the sefarim that so many of the chaver around the table are learning from. Likutei Moharan. Somebody else sent me a message the other day. 10 free Likutei Moharans in America. For anybody who's listening who doesn't know yet, there's this thing. You can mamish just fill out the form. If anybody needs the form, you can feel free to message me for the form. A beautiful Yid in Chicago, free Likutei Moharans. He sent over 70 Likutei Moharans already to people all around the States. 70 homes that now have Rebbe Nachman living on their bookshelf. Unbelievable. This is called tzedakah shenoisen l'tamar chacham. Well, that's going to save you from the two midas rois chai medaber, which is dvarim betelim and gaiva. Shei mechinas chaya ra'a v'listim. Chaya ra'a is the bechina of the animal, which is the bechina, like he said, of dvarim betelim, and listim is humans. That's medaber. That's the aspect of gaiva. Shei dvarim betelim v'gaiva v'tol doisei. Ki ayidei dvarim betelim v'lashan harba ni'os. How does Rebbe Nachman know that a person is going to be saved through giving tzedakah from this aspect of the fear of gaiva and dvarim betelim? Says the Rebbe, because lashon hara brings to aniyos. All the people died that were running after Moshe Rabbeinu, zeu aniyos, meaning they became impoverished. So that's the aspect of dvarim betelim. Lashon hara brings to aniyos, and also gaiva amru. Gaiva also brings to aniyos. The Gemara in Kedushin, simin legasas ruach aniyos. Aniyas will come to a person as a gas ruach. Tzedakah is asher. And adrabah, through giving tzedakah, you heal the aniyas because the person becomes wealthy. In the Gemara in Gittin. Im shleimim v'chein rabim v'chein nagayzu v'avra v'nisech lo ya'anech shav ein maran lo sivani aniyas. If a person goes ahead and gives tzedakah, v'inisech lo ya'anech, I will not afflict you anymore with poverty. V'zehu, and that's pshat. Kivin sha'ola amud hashachar. Amud hashachar saved the person from dvarim betelim, which is chaya, ra, umilistim, which is medaber, which is gaiva, which are both the aspect of aniyos, because both of them lead to aniyos, and somehow amud hashachar saves them. What's amud hashachar, says the Rebbe? Tzedakah. How do we know that Amud HaShachar is tzedakah? Amud HaShachar, remez l'tzedakah. K'moshe kasav, kisira aram l'chisisa. If you see a person without clothing and you garb that person, the pasuk continues, az yibaka k'shachar oirecha. Your light will shine like the morning. Says the Rebbe, there's a clear scriptural source that tzedakah is an aspect of shachar. Nimtza, ayidei tzedakah nitzal mimidas roish shel shnei yisaydas chai medaber. Through tzedakah to the tzaddik, you're saved from the aspects of chai medaber, shebechinas chai rav listim, which is dvar betelim, and gaiva, which is chai medaber. Finally, 1 minute left. Habachina shlishis. The third thing is what we're talking about. Is when you build a kesher to the tzaddik, we don't only see him and support his work, but you come there and you spill out your heart. Again, madrich oisa b'derech yashar. It's very practical. The tzaddik gives you a derech. You can walk. You know how to heal. And that's v'zehu higia leprashas drachim. When you come to a prashas drachim, and Chazal comment, what's the prashas drachim? Amr chacham nizkan l'varacha zet talmud chacham v'yoim hamisa. What's yoim hamisa? Vidui. Vidui. Zebechinas vidui dvarim lefnei Talmid Chacham. Talmid Chacham Yom HaMisa. Yom HaMisa remez al vidui. Yom HaMisa is vidui. Kamash Amar Rabbi Simon Zechron Levracha Kol HaMumasim. Anybody who's taken out because the Misa is based in, we force them to be mizvade. They have to be mizvade. V'zendikra prashas drachim. This is what it means. Prashas drachim. Ki Talmid Chacham mafresh loy derech. Prashas drachim. The tzaddik gives you a path. He teaches you how to serve Hashem. L'fisher sheshmasai as I nitzel mikulam, and then you're completely saved. Ki koydem shehisvada afal pishay eitzel Talmid Chacham and asal imamin. Before you did the vidoy, you were there. You saw him. You gave him money. Adayin eini edeh be'ezeh derech u'mahalach, but you still don't really know where you're going. Ki ish derech yashal v'nei ish v'acharisa darchei maves. It could be something that looks straight, but then it leads to death. Which is Talmid Chacham Yom HaMisa, meaning vidoy lefnei Talmid Chacham, and vidoy dvarim lefnei Talmid Chachamim, as I nitzel mikulam. Unbelievable interpretation of this Agada that's teaching us how to get saved from the Kaitzim and the Pchasim and the Chayra and the Listim and not knowing where we're going. It's all the Bechina of seeing the Tzaddik, Tzedakah to the Tzaddik, vidoy dvarim lefnei Tzaddik, and through that our neshama is ripped open and we're able to finally serve Hashem b'chol leiv u'b'chol nefesh, and to allow the Malchus to rise up from his exile Binah Akum to become a Malchus to Kedusha v'yala Hashem Amlucha v'Hashem l'melech ha'kol ha'aretz v'yom hu yiyeh Hashem echad v'shmei echad. Thank you so much for listening. We'll continue tomorrow morning.
ואתה האב שלי שכל כך אוהב אותי, האב שלי מלך חי וקיים על כל נשימה שאני